When it comes to the Middle Ages in Europe, it is a term that countless Enlightenment scholars look down upon. Even in such an ignorant era, the light of reason and speculation still shines brightly. This era witnessed the first awakening in Europe. It also gave birth to the first scholastic philosopher. Today, let's take a few minutes to review this philosopher who advocated examining faith with reason, Anselm of Canterbury, in the late 8th century AD, against the backdrop of the Carolingian Renaissance. With the decrees of Charlemagne, schools began to flourish within the Frankish kingdom, recruiting scholars. They taught in Latin, teaching theology and the liberal arts of ancient Greece. The culture of Western Europe also began to slowly revive. From then on, the church took on the important task of general education. Many teachers were also clergy members. Theology and philosophy are subjects they have always been interested in. In this context, Christian scholasticism was born. The teachers and scholars of these schools. The first and crucial philosopher of scholasticism was the headmaster of the Bald Charles Court School, Anselm. We do not have more historical records of this philosopher's early life. We cannot find more historical records. But unlike most Latin scholars at the time, Anselm was highly proficient in Greek. He had rich knowledge and textual skills. His first appearance in history caused a huge controversy within the church at the time. Sparked a huge controversy. Anselm was even excommunicated by the church twice. The Pope ordered the burning of all his works. The reason was Anselm, commissioned by two bishops of the Frankish kingdom at the time, to refute a monk's thesis emphasizing predestination. This monk once quoted a text by Augustine to argue for predestination. He believed whether people can be saved has already been predestined by God. This statement naturally challenged the religious authority of the church at that time, undermined the necessity of the church's existence. In order to refute the opponent, Augustine found some evidence favorable to his own claims. In Augustine's text, he quoted a passage from Augustine in True Religion that said, the original text says, AGV Street gives so. True philosophy is true religion. Conversely, true religion is true philosophy. What does this sentence mean? As the commentary says, unless through philosophy, no one can enter heaven. That's all. We have already discovered the reasons why the church suppressed Augustine. Although he claimed to be interpreting Augustine's text, listen with a fair mind. But his true purpose is to prove reason should be above faith. When faith contradicts reason, we need to use reason as the standard. Re-examine your own beliefs. In his subsequent paper, he continues to state his claims. Avicenna believes philosophy consists of four main parts: division, definition, argument, resolution. Pursuing these four methods of reasoning will bring us closer to the truth. For people today, what Avicenna said is simply true. Analyzing problems through formal logic is a fundamental quality that should be mastered in modern humanities education. In modern humanities education, from our modern perspective, Avicenna's thoughts are undoubtedly advanced. But for the Frankish kingdom where politics and religion were unified at that time, it was obviously unacceptable. Avicenna once argued in his paper, we cannot presuppose God with our own thoughts, because God is a transcendent, infinitely perfect being. In the beginning, God created man. He had already given mankind free will. Humans can use their free will to choose to approach or distance themselves from God. Those who approach are in heaven. But based on their own choices, Avicenna believes that rational thinking and divine revelation are both sources of truth. They should have equal authority. So, they cannot contradict each other. If philosophy and religion create conflicts between reason and faith, people should obey reason. The reason Avicenna speaks of does not come from authority itself, because all authority, if it cannot be verified by reason, is inherently fragile. True reason relies on the thinker themselves, and not on the support of other authorities. In order to achieve a truly perfect knowledge, he believes that people, in exploring the ultimate reasons for all things, the most effective and reliable way is what the Greeks called philosophy. Through the above arguments, it can be said that Abelard has proven the church's punishment is justified, but he also offended the church, and was not tolerated by the bishops and priests of the time. Therefore, the next one to be punished is none other than Abelard himself, who had just defended the church. Abelard himself. The Pope at the time demanded to have Abelard arrested and brought to the Roman Curia for trial, but Bald Charles never handed over Abelard. Under the protection of Bald Charles, Abelard continued to study philosophy. Later, he produced his representative work on the distinction of nature. In the year 877 AD, Bald Charles, who finally wore the crown of Rome as he wished, passed away while aiding the Pope in battle. Abelard, without protection, immediately disappeared. There are rumors that Abelard was persecuted. He chose to flee. There are also rumors that he had already been persecuted by the clergy. Looking back at the controversial debate of that year, in fact, the focus itself is not on whether determinism is valid, but on the social organization at that time, directly determining that the church must monopolize the interpretation of religion, the Bible, and even doctrine. Anyone attempting to meddle with the church's authority on religious interpretation would be labeled a heretic. Compared to Abelard, those who attempt to encourage independent thinking and embrace logic and reason, those priests who advocate determinism, do not appear as repugnant. Abelard was once hailed by Hegel as the true father of medieval philosophy. Although this view has not been widely accepted, I believe that Abelard as definitely a philosopher who has been underestimated for a long time. It should be noted that in the philosophy of the fathers before this, the fathers unanimously believed that faith is superior to reason. Reason must obey faith. And in the history of Christian philosophy, Anselm was the first to explicitly propose that faith should obey reason. It should be noted that Anselm was an Irishman. The Frankish kingdom at that time was considered by the Eastern Roman Empire to be a barbaric land imitating the East, not to mention Ireland, which was even more remote than the Frankish kingdom, and considered the most barbaric of barbarians, with such a reputation for barbarism. Yet at that time, he made bolder actions and more speculative arguments than the average Latin scholar, in that oppressive environment of public opinion, appeared particularly valuable. Anselm neither quoted the Bible, nor relied on the authority of the fathers, but in that time, he chose to approach this judgment with a philosophical perspective, using rational logic to analyze this judgment. Due to the incomplete historical records, we know very little about the death of Eriugena. Only scattered rumors are recorded. It's difficult for us to find a reliable cause of death. If Eriugena did indeed die from persecution by the church, it would inevitably add a legendary color to him, similar to the legendary color of Socrates' death. This issue's content ends here. Next issue, we will explore Eriugena's representative works together, discussing the distinction of nature. Stay tuned as I take you through a popular view of philosophy.